So, you're probably not getting the most value out of Confluence. Like, you may be paying for something that you're just not using. And yeah, I know that's kind of hard to hear. And you're here listening to this talk, probably believing that Confluence can be something great. It can be. It really can be. But if you think about it, you might be feeling in the back of your head like you or your team or your organization aren't really using it to its fullest potential. And you might be seeing a lot of people just sort of throw content into Confluence, and that's sort of like a mess. Or maybe you're finding spaces that are just like messy and purposeless and totally disorganized. Or maybe you're finding information it's just getting lost, which is what your other tools were doing that you were trying to replace with Confluence. So, hi, I'm Matt with K15T, and in this talk, we're going to cover 10 Confluence best practices that we found at K15T to be transformative for organizations. We've been using Confluence for over 10 years now, and we make many of the top-rated apps for Confluence, and we know, and I know, what it can be. Over the last year and a half, it's sort of become a passion and obsession of mine and K15T's to share best practices with everyone, because when it comes down to it, in order to transform our organizations with Confluence, we have to use it in the very best way possible. And I can't really stress this enough, but I'm going to spend the next few minutes trying to stress it, maybe too much. So stay on the line. At K15T, we found that the key to getting the most value from Confluence is to make Confluence everyone's tool of choice. So for some of us, this just happens because of curiosity. We seek out the best ways to do things. But for others, we might have to help them along. Maybe they don't have the time. Maybe they just don't know where to begin. And that's why Confluence best practices matter to everyone in our organization, because they change the way we look at the content and collaboration that we're all doing and creating every day. So let's look at some best practices together. So best practice number 1 is about comments, threaded conversations, and at mentions. And you might be thinking, okay, well, this is a really basic talk. Why is he talking about comments? Everybody knows about comments. But as it turns out, that's not really true. So recently we stumbled on the fact that something like 60% of Confluence users do not know that inline comments exist, like the feature. They just don't even know they can do it. Just think about that for a split second. That is a really important part of Confluence, and many people don't know that it even exists. So let's talk about the basics, because the basics matter, and we'll get into the more juicy best practices after this simple softball one at the beginning. So there are a few different types of comments that we can use. So the first is an inline comment, which is when you select text and you click comment. These are really, really great for very specific conversations directly attached to a part of your page, your content in Confluence. And then the other option are page level comments, which are at the bottom of the page. And this is really a great way to have sort of a broader discussion around the content of a page. Now, these conversations are threaded, so you can work through a topic together with your colleagues, and your future selves will thank you because you can go back and read through the thread and see what was discussed and decided. And when giving a comment, make sure you use at mentions to bring teammates in. This will send them a notification in their inbox, or if they have the Confluence app, they'll get a notification there. Comments are sort of the heart and soul of collaboration in Confluence. That's why it's important that everyone knows they exist. But at mentions are an incredibly important piece in engaging people who aren't currently using Confluence, because it draws them into the conversation. With inline comments, you can actually begin to pull people in from their inbox or where they're working and get collaboration rolling in Confluence. And, pro tip, to keep things clean, make sure you resolve the inline comments when you're done. Now, Confluence best practice number 2 is all about well-structured pages. So people are made to skim. We just love it. That's the way our brains work. We're trying to find a golden nugget in the middle of a big page. So our pages need to be a skimmable masterpiece. That is, if we want people to find what they actually need, we need to make it easy to identify that. And a large part of that is done with formatting in Confluence. There's a lot of tools we can use, but here's a few that can really make a difference. So font formatting can be used to draw attention to key bits of information. This is something that you definitely shouldn't overuse, because some people with visual impairments can't even see this formatting. And if you have too many things highlighted this way, people won't be able to notice them over all the other highlights. Another thing is font color. It's really great for drawing out content distinctions like this and this and this. But again, don't rely on colors to communicate something, because some folks with accessibility needs won't be able to see them as you have them in mind. And since 2/3 of people prefer a visual example, try to include at least one image on a page. If you don't have an image or it doesn't really make sense, draw a diagram. Get something on there to help communicate in a different way the content on your page. And then finally, you can use the expand macro to hide what I would call bonus content. So that would be the content on the page that's not relevant to everybody, just some people, but it's like very large and it's taking up space. So you could hide it in a content expand macro, and then it's there for those people who need it, and for those people who don't, it's out of the way. But don't ever hide important content. Now, best practice number 3 is about commenting like a pro. Right? So when you're really good at commenting, you always start by asking yourself, should I actually comment here? I know this talk is about best practices, not about button mashing. I might be telling you not to use a Confluence feature. So just think about the kind of feedback you want to give. Is it the sort of short and concise feedback? Then yeah, definitely use an inline comment. That's perfect. Is it long form with many points and decisions? Then that might be where you want to move to the page level comments area and make sure you don't do an inline comment. Or maybe it might just be a really big conversation that needs to be had, and in that case, move to Zoom or a video call and get the conversation going there, and then document the changes or make the changes on the page in the meeting with like a pair writing session, kind of like pair programming. Now, if you've been asked to proofread some content, sometimes it's just better to jump in the editor and fix typos and mistakes. Like, nobody wants to ask for proofreading help and then get 50 comments on their page that says, you used the wrong there. That has happened to me. Instead, add that comment once and then go fix all those typos. So somebody can learn how to fix the mistake that they made, and also they don't have to make all those changes. It's just better for everyone. And then finally, be sure to use the like button when you see a good comment on a page. Adding a like is just such a great way to show teammates that you value their thoughts or you agree with what they said there. It takes no time at all, but it really adds a lot of positive energy out there. So just go for it. Use that like button. Now, let's pause on the best practices to think about the fact that you might not be doing your best work in Confluence. And yeah, I know how that sounds. I'm not saying that you're not working hard or that you're not doing high quality work. I'm just saying that your work, the work that you're doing, it just might not be done in the best way, which means that it just won't be as effective. Now remember, in order to transform our organization with Confluence, we have to use it in the very best way possible. And in our organizations, we're always looking for ways to make the work we do more impactful. Like, a lot is done through efficiencies and automations and reuse or referencing old work. So at K15T, we found that the key to doing your best work in Confluence is to amplify the effect of your great content. Now, that's why Confluence best practices matter to everyone, because they make our content exponentially more useful to people over time. They both empower us in the present and in the future, because what we've learned in the past is valuable to us right now, and what we're learning now will be valuable to us in the future. So let's look at some more best practices. So Confluence best practice number 4 is around templates that are in a useful spot. So templates are great. We love templates when they're used. See, they bring consistency to pages that you create, and they can help put those pages in the right spot. But unfortunately, many times people forget to use them because they may not be top of mind, or they may not know which one to use. And so people might just copy another page and then start changing the content on there, but then they leave some old content behind, and it's just, ew. No, that's not the way. So in situations where you have a solid parent page, like maybe a page for marketing projects, for example, add a create from template macro. Create from template macros are great because essentially it adds a button with the text on it that you define and the template that you choose. And what happens when you save that page with that macro on it is people can just click the create a project or create whatever button, and they're dropped directly into the Confluence editor with that template that you chose already selected. So somebody just jumps to the page, they say, I want to make a project. They click a button that says make a project. They're in the editor making a project. There's no thought about templates or anything. Instead, they're going in and creating great content that's structured and organized properly in Confluence. So Confluence best practice number 5 is all about filtering in advanced search. So the key to making our content useful over time is being able to find it, right? While there have been lots of improvements made to Confluence Cloud Search in particular, we still have to do some work to bubble those needles out of the haystack. I don't know if that analogy makes sense. But anyway, the good news is we can find whatever we want with some tricks. So if you don't find what you're looking for when you're doing a Confluence search, that's okay. Click that advanced search button at the bottom of the quick search results. You'll be happy you did. Now there's a lot going on here, but don't panic. So first of all, you have more room here to review all the search results. There's more information on each one, so you can maybe catch something that you didn't catch before. But you can also review pages and attachments and spaces and third-party data types like diagrams, if you have a diagramming app, for example. You can also filter by basic things like the space that the page is in or the people you know who have worked on it, but you can also filter by type. So maybe you're looking for a specific attachment like a Word doc, or maybe your team is really consistent using page labeling. You could apply a filter to really narrow down your results. So for example, you could look for the hackathon idea label and just narrow down the result so you can find the thing you're looking for almost every time. So Confluence best practice number 6 is about clearly formatted tables. We all love making tables in Confluence. You know who you are. This message goes out to you. You have a mega table and you're very proud of it. And you think that everyone loves that mega table, but let me tell you, I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you. People don't like reading them. They are so hard to read and it's very hard to find the information people need. So let's improve that mega table, shall we? So first, we need to include only essential information. Remove all that other information that's just not needed. Yeah, it looks cool, but often this can help people focus on the information that actually matters in the table. It removes visual clutter. It's just better for everyone. I promise. Also, use emoji. Cut down the written content on the page by replacing some of it or enhancing some of it with a symbol, an emoji. I'm not recommending you do this for all your text, but in those places where there's like yes, no answers, or maybe just 3 options, an emoji can help people very quickly visually identify the information they're looking for. Just don't only rely on emoji because, again, they may not be accessible for everyone. Also, make sure you're aligning the content in the table vertically. Our brains are typically programmed to read tables vertically, so make sure they're organized by the most important thing moving downward. So in this case, I actually needed to flip the content because the people here on this table are more important than the data points about those people. And then, yes, my friends, split mega table apart. Keep an eye out for those tables that have gotten too big. It may break your heart, but it will warm everyone else's to read through smaller tables that are grouped around a specific purpose rather than one giant one. Now, if you're like, I just want to have a giant one, I really want to have a big, beautiful database in Confluence, show me the way. You can check out K15T's apps called Orderly Databases, where you can replace Megatable with a mega awesome database and reuse that content in crazy cool ways across Confluence. But let's pause for just one more frustrating moment and think about the fact that you may not be making the biggest difference with Confluence. And that's, it's not ideal because its potential, right? I do. We can feel it. We understand all the transformative things that Confluence can do. Now, one more time, I will say that in order to transform our organization with Confluence, we have to use it in the best way possible. At K15T, we found that the key to making the biggest difference with Confluence is to enable your team to change their world. Yeah, I know that might sound a little grand, a little dramatic, maybe too Hollywood, but think about it for just a minute. So when a person like you or me, have access to the information that we need. When we can collaborate quickly and powerfully, when we're unleashed to do the thing that we actually care about, especially during a time when workers in every sector are pushing for more meaningful work and better working conditions and equitable compensation, using Confluence to unlock the binds around our organization's information is absolutely liberating and empowering to everyone. Right? And when we can come home, or maybe we're already home and we just close the laptop lid, and we're not frustrated from all the effort we had to put in during the day just to find information or just to create information, when we're not bringing that frustration to our home life is better and work life is better. And honestly, those two worlds have collided so much that the impact, it may be small, lots of small changes to people's worlds, but those really add up. At least I think they do. So finally, let's look at a few more Confluence best practices. So Confluence best practice number 7 is all about powerful pages filled with really useful properties and labels. So when you're creating the same types of pages over and over and over again, like maybe project pages, there's often details that are consistent between all of them. Some might refer to these bits of information as metadata. And now in Confluence, we would think about these as two things. So properties in a table and some really good labels. So why do we use these? So we can create pages like this. So this is an amazing page where there's information on product marketing content projects at the top. And then there's this whole collection of details on all of the projects that are actually happening. So you can find everything you need in one place, even though this information is coming from other pages in Confluence. So to do this, to add these properties, you first add a page properties macro to a page, and then you drop a table in there with 2 columns, one with the keys, so marketing content title, due date, team members, basically the fields. And then on the other column, you fill in the values of those fields on each of the pages. And then, of course, you want to add good labels to help further identify what type of content are we talking about here. So in this case, the labels marketing and project would be really valuable because this is a project about marketing content. So these will help us define what the page is about. With these in place, you can add a page properties report macro to the parent page where you have all of your projects. You can filter for the pages with the given labels, and now you've got this perfect snapshot of all of the marketing content projects that are going on, no matter where they are in Confluence. That is amazing. Now, Confluence best practice number 8 is all about title prefixes for grouping pages. So we really like using prefixes because it helps our eyes find pages that are related to each other really, really quickly. It's kind of just like when you add a little bit of text at the beginning of a page title to make it more identifiable. It's really helpful for searching and for skimming. So if I search for getting started, for example, there are a lot of results here. That's not really helpful for me. But check it out, when I add DSG for design style guide, which is actually what I'm looking for, I instantly see the page that I'm looking for right at the top of the results. Like, this is pure magic, people. Top search result, totally relevant, mic drop. Well, I probably shouldn't drop this mic, it's not mine. But I can go a step further because I can also just search for DSG. And the search result will now show me all the pages in the design style guide. And then I can just use this like a menu and pick the page that I want to read. Prefixes also go well with page hierarchies, with a parent page spelling out like the full acronym for the prefix, and then all the child pages using that prefix. That is just incredible because people can very quickly skim through things. So Confluence best practice number 9 is about using a single piece of content and including it all over the place in Confluence. So you can create content on just one page in Confluence and then use that all over the place. If you have, for example, legal terms, your company has a privacy policy or something, you can just write that on a single page in Confluence. And then you can use the include page macro on any page to pull that privacy statement into one page or into 100 different pages. And when content is reused like this, it's totally invisible to users. Like, there's the privacy policy, which is actually coming from a totally different page, but you don't know that. Well, I mean, you do now. Shoot, I shouldn't have told you. Now, if you go back in and you make any changes to your privacy policy, like adding an image, this change is immediately updated on any other page where that content is included. And to level this up, you can put all your reusable content, those many pages with your legal statements and all sorts of other content that you put all over the place, in a particular section in Confluence. So maybe you have one area of one space where you have these reusable chunks, like maybe in your legal space, or maybe you have so many of them that you want to have a whole separate space in Confluence, like your content reuse library, where you have all of those in one place so that everybody knows where to go to find the content that's reused all over the place. You can also do some pretty cool content reuse with the excerpt macro, but alas, that's a best practice for another talk. All right, I know you've been waiting for Confluence. Best practice number 10 is the ability to share content externally using documents. So we all need to get content out of Confluence from time to time. Maybe we have teammates outside of Confluence, or maybe this is for a client. Sometimes people just want a document. Right? Maybe their team is like, we are still living the SharePoint life, so get us a document, please. We can get them into Confluence eventually, but let's start with the document first. So with the right space permission, you can export the entire contents of a space as a PDF document. You can do all the pages, or you can just select the ones that you want to be in the PDF. The exported PDF will include an interactive table of contents for quick navigation and basic formatting. One thing to note is that you can't export the content of an entire space as a Word document, which is like kind of a bummer. But my team actually makes apps called Scroll PDF and Scroll Word Exporter that lets you do that and create custom templates so you can make them all design fancy if you're you want more than the basic formatting. So you have options. But the cool thing is, this is a great way to bring people into Confluence who are still like, I'm working with documents, but also this Confluence thing seems pretty cool. So that was a really big bucket of Confluence best practices that I just dumped on all of y'all. And wow, here they all are on this slide. And this is actually typically my favorite time, when I would ask you questions. Or you would ask me questions, rather, and I would try to give you an answer. It's really fun and challenging, and that way you don't have to listen to my voice. But unfortunately, I don't think you can ask those right now because we're not in the same place in the same time. So here's what I would suggest. If you just email me, matt@k15t.com, any questions, I will answer those. Or you can find several other ways to connect with me and with the K15T team, and we will answer any Confluence best practice questions you have. So, are you ready to transform your organization with Confluence? With these and other great Confluence best practices, you can empower everybody in your organization to get the most value from Confluence by making it their tool of choice, to do their best work in Confluence by amplifying the effect of their fantastic content, and to make the biggest difference with Confluence by enabling them to change their world, even if they're small changes. Small changes are great. At K15T, we are constantly pursuing the very best of Confluence, if you couldn't tell. And if that's you, if you're part of that club, bring the best back to your team with Rock the Docs. Rock the Docs is a site that we made. It is full of guides for just Confluence best practices, how to get the very best of Confluence for your team. Also, check out K15T on YouTube. We have dozens of bite-sized videos that you can bring back to your team and share the best ways to do certain things. It's pretty cool. You may see a familiar face in there. Finally, if you're at Team 22, drop into the K15T booth to meet the amazing team who inspire these best practices, or head to k15t.com and meet with us there. There's a billion buttons on there where you can connect to the real people who make these real apps, including myself. So please find us and connect with us. I cannot wait to meet you. Now, I'm excited for you and for your team and your organization in this journey of transformation. This is like the most exciting thing using Confluence to make a major difference. So I hope you join me and K15T as we continue to explore how to use Confluence to share what you do best. Have a good one.